Well, hi there. I kind of figured if y'all found out that this stuff was being filmed, you'd show up more than once a week, and surprise, surprise, there you are. Speaking of it being filmed, I'm our sponsor and all that. I can't get over the gauge on this thing with just the numbers and not the dial. That's just fascinating. I'm gonna end up being like them kids that look at a clock and go, what do those things mean? Yeah. Anyway, we're got a busy day. Now, this is kind of a new thing with all this filming, interwebs, and all that. So, having access, I had myself a look around just to see how folks were doing this. It seems that if you're on the interwebs and you're doing your daily job, and you want to make that job interesting for other people on the interwebs, that I don't want that, I want that. We got to clean up some stuff first. It seems to help to tell stories. You know, people take on fake personalities, and you know, they make up stuff about who they are, or where they are, or what they're doing, or and I suppose that's alright. But I thought, you know, I guess that's okay if you're like an actor, you know, somebody that has a talent along that line. But, well, first off, most of them don't. And the ones that do, well, they generally got so many people tuned into their stuff that they got nothing to worry about on a bad day, leave alone a good one. And, what am I doing? Oh, yeah, I knew there was something missing. I ain't done yet. So I thought, you know, let's try something completely different. Because, well, I know I can barely stand those people, so I can't be alone in it. So I'm going to try something completely different. I'm going to tell a story, too. Why is it different? Well, the story I'm going to tell is absolutely 100% real. None of it is made up. None of it is outside the facts. None of it has been gone over by the correct political party and decided what could and could not be said, nor has it had religious scrutiny and decided as unfit or worthy. So, in its barest, rawest form, I'm going to tell you the story of the bear. Yes, indeed. This is an event from my younger days, and, well, as I say, it is absolutely a true story. So, when I was a young fella, apparently I have to make a disclaimer, so I will do that. Let's sip of morning coffee here to get through this disclaimer bit, okay? Alright, there we go. So the disclaimer is this. The following story has been deemed to be absolutely true. All of the facts have been checked. All of the characters have been witnessed and talked to. Only the names have been changed to protect the idiots. So that's pretty much the gist thereof. And let's get on with it. This is the story of the bear. Now, when I was a young fella, I worked in a little tiny town called Port Alice. Now, Port Alice is kind of a neat place. In so much as it's very, very isolated. It is... There we go. Now we'll get some results out of this thing. It's also unique in... It has rather a phenomenon Canadian weather. Now that may seem like not a hard thing to do, seeing as we have a reputation for weather. Generally not good, but we do. Okay, that's that one. Well, the reputation this place has is that it actually rains, on average, just on average, mind you, 340 days a year. Oh yeah, you heard me right. 340 days a year. So, needless to say, if you're not working, it can sometimes be a little difficult coming up with ways to keep yourself amused. I used to do it by riding dirt bikes. Now, this is in fact the first time in my life when I have not been riding dirt bikes. And I'm afraid it's just not the time with the farming, and of course the old body tends to let you down. It's a young man's sport, and I was a young man, and it was my sport. So I didn't ride dirt bikes on nice little tracks and all of that stuff, because no such thing existed where we were. We used to go out to back roads and ride, and there were literally hundreds and hundreds of these back roads available. Hundreds of miles of these back roads available. You know, they wrapped around the lake that I lived at. Yeah, I lived at a cabin at a lake. I built most of it myself. Started with kind of a shell that I bought off a fella, and proceeded to turn it into a livable unit. Whole thing ran off a 12-volt electricity that I generated from, what's the term I'm looking for? Purloined. That's it. Which was generated from some purloined cat batteries. Yeah, big D9 cats. You tend to find them out a lot of logging sites and stuff in certain parts of the world, like Canada. And, alright, this one's being stubborn. So yeah, the whole thing ran off a 12-volt system from these particular batteries. There we go. And that was my living accommodations. So, let's say, one of my favorite pastimes was to go out and take my dirt bike out and go exploring. So I'd make myself up a bit of a lunch, and out the door I go, and pack just a compass and a topographic map of that particular part of the world. Now, I don't expect either of those particular things to mean anything to you modern folk. I mean, I suppose handing a kid these days, handing him a compass would be like handing him a clock. He'd look at it and go, "You call that what?" Yeah, let's face it. But one of the skills that we used to learn as younger fellas was, in fact, how to use a compass and how to use a map, and all of that sort of thing. And since I don't really have time, nor the inclination, to be teaching all you fine young folk at this point in time how to use a compass or a map, I will say one thing for you. There is not a man on this earth who ever got lost that bothered to turn around and look behind him once in a while. You understand me? Okay. Not a single person has ever got lost as long as they did that important thing. Because that's how people get lost, right? When it comes to getting about, alright, we're not like ducks. We don't got iron boogers, right? We don't have this magnetic alignment thing that allows us to find our way pretty much from one end of the planet to t'other without getting terribly lost. You know, for most of us, we step out the door, and if it weren't for street signs and pavement, we would be helpless and hopeless. Well, see, the thing of it is, when you're out in the bush, okay, let's assume this was actually a bush, alright? Now, we got two trees with a little tiny one directly between them, okay? So we could go, alright, that's a landmark. We got these two really big trees and a little tiny one right in the center. If we line that up, we're going the right direction. Alright. Problem is, so you use that and you're going the right direction. And here you're wandering through and you keep going. Now you turn around And you're on your way back and you go, I've never seen this before, where do I go? You understand what I'm saying? Had you in fact gone, alright, here's the 2 big trees, there's a little one. As soon as you got to the little tree, you turn around and you look behind you, okay? And you go, alright, with the road on my right side, I'm looking for this. Okay, now, when you come back from your journey and you get to this position, you go, the road, I remember the road. Now I know if I keep the road on my right, all I gotta do is look for, there it is. And you come through and you go, hey, there's my little tree, there's my big ones, and here's my field. See what I'm saying? So there you go. Much better than teaching you how to use a compass. Although I still think that's one of those things everybody should know how to do. A lot less wasted resources looking for dopies lost in the bush if they just knew what they were doing when they left. Alright, I think we have handled that. Nice. Alright, move on. So at any rate, I used to spend a fair time out in the woods on my motorcycle, parading up and down these roads looking for new places, because there's some pretty neat stuff way out there in the north end of Vancouver Island, where not a lot of people have gone, and those that have tended to stay till whatever resource they were resourcing at was no longer as prolific as they would like, and then they moved on. And most of it was done back in the good old days of greed and rage, where you didn't wait till you got every speck out. You usually got the easy stuff, and then walked away. Oh, yeah, I suppose that would help, wouldn't it? Get that thing spinning away like that, that could be just a disaster. So it was always worth going to these places and looking around. Oh man, I seem to got my wheel stuck on the post. There we go. So that was used to be one of my ultimate favorite pastimes. Getting on a dirt bike, go roaring around on these old roads, and see what was to be seen. I found all kinds of stuff. Found old vehicles from the 30s. And just, you never knew. You'd see something off in the bush and stop and get out and have a look at it. Just all kinds of cool surprises. I found old bottles, old cameras, and I mean old, I'm talking turn of the century stuff old. So it was always neat. Well, generally I would take a dirt bike with a pack on my back and a jerry can strapped to the back with enough to refill my tank. And the idea being I'd simply pick a road, head off, and when I run out of fuel, I could empty the jerry can into it and know that I would get back. Now, generally, I was smart enough to do this before I would run out of fuel, so you'd always have enough to get back. But there is always a chance you take a wrong turn, because you are going by direction. Right? And other than that, that's pretty much all I traveled with. Ooh, 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 ooh. Now, even though it's bear country, and I'm sure that you'd think, well, didn't you pack something to defend yourself against local wildlife? Well, not in particular. Because, first off, the bears that I run into in a place like... Oh, no, did I hit that log stack? Boy, I hope not. What is, oh, I forgot I had this trailer. I truly did. So, let's take that off of there. There we go. So off into the woods I go one fine day, and I have my pack sack, and I have all of my goodies in it. And I'm on my bike, and away I go. Got my full tank of gas. Are you serious? There we go. And off I head. Now, the bike that I'm on is a 250cc Honda Elsinore. Now, for those of you not familiar with that particular animal, and although it was famous, you still may not be familiar with it. The reason it was famous is because it used to very consistently win a certain type of race, because they are in fact a racing bike. The type of race it used to win is what they call flat track, which is some pretty crazy stuff. And it makes for an interesting motorcycle. They're all about go and not so much about stop. And that leads to two very distinct problems. Now, one, they don't actually have a rear brake. And two, they're meant to be run all the time at high speed. In fact, to the point where if you don't, I don't know what happened to my log pile. It was beautiful minutes ago. I must have whacked into it with something. Oh, I probably hit it with the trailer. But anyway, so these things are designed to go fast, and they're designed to go fast from the time the guy says go until you're done. Right? And by fast, I mean with the throttle wound to its absolute maximum, always. So that's fine and dandy. I'm spilling this everywhere. I'm just a complete monkey with this thing today. There we go. So yeah, this was a real go-fast machine. Now, it was a lot of fun, and I mean it went fast. In fact, quite often the issue was I'd come into corners too fast and darn near run out of road. I have my share of accidents on it, which is one of the reasons my old body don't treat me as well as it used to. Now, what would happen if you didn't run this thing with the throttle just twisted was it would stall out, because it would foul the plug, and it would do it all the darn time. It would foul the plug, man. It was a continuous battle. So anytime you had to back off the throttle, you'd basically yank in the clutch, and the whole time you'd be going wing, 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 like just making sure you were snapping the revs up good and high. And then the bike would keep running. This has got a much longer reach than it looks, eh? Yeah. Huh. So yeah, if you did, however, allow it to foul and it would ba-do-ba-do-ba-do and then die, you would have to pull the spark plug. And clean her off, reinstall her, tighten her down, blah blah blah. Kick her over a couple of times and get her light back up. Not fun times. So I'm out on this bike one day and I'm blasting around. It's a beautiful day. It is one of the 20 to 30 odd days of the year that it wasn't actually just coming down in buckets. So I was enjoying it. To the point where I'd actually put my small helmet on instead of the full face. Normally I don't ride a dirt bike with a full face helmet, but when it's as likely to hail or at least, very least, rain on you while you're out there, you do, let me tell you. Because even rain feels like somebody's shooting at you with a pellet pistol in the face. And I was out there having a great time, checking out a new area. There's a beautiful kind of greeny blue little lake in the middle of this forested area that I'd seen on the map, and I'd been told by other people that there was a trail in there. So I was looking for this thing. Oh, I think we're full. I'm looking for this thing, and I take this one road and head off. Turns out it's a blind canyon, and I mean a real blind canyon. I come in on a trail through dense, heavy bush, and keep in mind, this is your British Columbia bush. This ain't no Ontario bush, your Minnesota bush, no, this is think of the worst jungles in the world, but trees instead of whatever their biggest plant is. And you pretty much got it. Other difference being, most jungles, if you have a machete, you can get through. There's stuff in the woods in BC that, yeah, even a machete won't get you through. So, we're talking, you're on a trail or you're pretty much hooped. So, I'm coming through that exact type of woods on this very, very overgrown, old, obvious logging road. And, I get as far as it'll go. I think, wow, it's really, really steep. To the end of the canyon, it's pretty much, alright, for some reason this is just not gonna hook up. And you can basically look almost straight up the cliff walls. And it's a nice little horseshoe-shaped canyon. Really pretty little place. Beautiful sunshine. And a little bit of a clearing at the end. Now, I mean, we're talking, yeah, about this size, you know. If you take this little ring of trees and run a mountain straight up where you see trees, that's pretty much the canyon. And I'm in here. You know, a road come in and I'm standing here. And off in this corner is an old recce. Like a 2-ton panel truck. I used to use them for getting the loggers out into the bush to where all the equipment was. You know, running them back if there was an emergency. They called them recce's from the old reconnaissance, military reconnaissance vehicles. Because they had much the same sort of a task. So, that's in there, and there's not a heck of a lot else. I think, well, she's pretty much lunchtime. I think I'm going to climb on top of this here recce. There's, you know, it's been sitting in the bush probably 30 years or more. You know, the tires have actually rotted off. There's pieces of kind of shredded up rubber and stuff underneath where you'd expect it to be sitting up on its wheels. So, yeah, the tires are pretty much rotted off her. She's tilted over a little bit, but not enough that with a pretty good effort I managed to get up on the roof of this. I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty nice. Sitting in the sunlight, it's beautiful, warm. You know, what more could you ask for? I reach into my pack and I take out my big thermos of nice ice cold juice and I pours myself a cupful. And I reach into my pack and I pull out my sandwich container and one of my ultimate favorite of favoritist sandwiches, your standard tuna salad on white. Yeah, I know. It's about as boring as you can get and probably not what you'd expect from a Canadian boy, but yeah, I do like my tuna fish. Well, I'm sitting there, I'm sucking up the sunshine. I mean, you got to. You got to. I mean, you don't even go to bed at night on nice days. Just so you don't miss a single ray of sunshine in that year. You can't. You basically melt if you don't. So I'm soaking up the sunshine. I'm thinking, what a beautiful day this is. I hear this sound, and it's a crashing, snapping, slashing, sliding, kind of bashing about sound. And well, it's the bear. I guess it either spotted me from the top of the canyon, and I come to think this part later, smelled my tuna fish sandwich. 'Cause one thing black bears are known to love more than pine mushrooms, although cheaper than pine mushrooms, is fish. I mean, bears love fish. It's right up there with eating rubber hoses and plastic. So he's smelled this or seen me or whatever, and has made a total klutz of himself and has fallen down the side of this canyon and is now standing 10 feet in front of me, staring straight at me with a look on his face like, I meant to do that and you're gonna pay for it. And stands up on his hind feet, looks me square in the face. I mean, he wasn't quite as tall as the top of that recce, but darn near. We're talking full-grown, adult, black, male bear. You know, ain't nothing to sneeze at. He's probably, 600 pound. You know, stands more than 6 feet when he's upright. And, well, I gotta tell you, back then, I worked in a mill. And I did tough physical work. You know, I did the kind of work that after a half an hour, you're just ice cold winter day, no heat in the place, and the sweat's just pouring off you. You know, and your Chinese co-worker looks over at you and go, Lick, you sweating? And I go, boy, that ain't sweat. That's condensation from the ice water in my veins and my stone cold heart. Of course, they only understood 3 words in English, so I suppose that particular speech was a little bit on the wasted side. But, yeah, it was that kind of physical work. So, needless to say, I was tough as nails. I was solid as a rock. You know, I was about as peak fit as a young fella can be. And, also I had hair down to my butt, but that was nothing to do with it. Unless, of course, he likes Samson jokes. But, so there I am. And I'm thinking, you might as well be a little girl, because that bear will mess you up. And I'm also thinking, you know damn well that Elsinore is going to take 4 or 5 kicks to start. That's if it starts at all. Yeah, the only thing between me and the Elsinore is 500 pounds of snarly chuffing bear. Chuffing. Well, let's speak about chuffing. Because chuffing's a thing that, now it's hard to describe, but it will create the amazing skid marks and little leaky bits into your underwear if you've never heard it before, and you have standing in front of you, as I say, a rather large, proud member of their species, and he's upset. And chuffing is a thing that bears do, where they're standing up on their hind legs, they make kind of a woof noise, like you might expect out of a really big dog. I'm talking 9 Marmadukes sized dog. And right at the peak of the woof part, they'll drop and pound their front feet against the ground. Right? So you have kind of this, well, something that size. You basically have an earth-shaking thing going on with each of these woofs. It's impressive, but it's meant to be, because that's what it is. It's a display. And, yeah, that's just downhill enough that it keeps rolling back out of the bucket. So, this guy starts chuffing at me. And I'm thinking, that's not good, because they only do that when something has particularly upset them. You know, now I've been living around bears a long time. Okay, I recognize some different behaviors and such. Anything living in that part of the country, or anyone, I should say, living in that part of the country, really, this is just impossible. Try that angle. So yeah, anybody living in that part of the country pretty much needs to, you know, learn a little bit about bears and their behavior, because you're going to see them. I guarantee you, you cannot live there and not see bears. Oh, this couldn't be more awkward. There are such dips and rises and stuff in the field here, it's making it difficult. So, he's doing this chuffing thing, and I'm thinking, alright, why is he so upset with me? You know? It's about now that I'm starting to think, as I continue to chew on it, I wonder if it's the tuna fish. You know? I mean, it could well be. I know bears like tuna. So, of course, my first thought is, well, I'll throw him a piece. Which, thankfully, was followed by my second thought, which was, you're just a little stupider than your dirt bike, aren't you, boy? You're going to throw him a piece. Yeah. And then he's going to go, dang, that was even better than it smelled, and he's going to jump up here, and he's going to take your pack, and he's going to eat your pack. And then he's going to go, well, that whet my appetite, and then he's going to eat you. So I decided, no, I will simply shove this in my mouth as quickly as I can. So I do that. I think, there you go, bear. Now there's nothing left for you to be upset about. Oddly enough, this didn't work. He continued to do the chuff thing, and which isn't impressive at all, let me tell you. And I was really getting worried at this point. So I'm thinking, well, you know what, boy? Unless you plan to spend as long as it takes for this bear to decide he's bored with you and just stand around here, you got to take a proactive approach to what's going on, boy. You do. So I look about me, and there's various bits and pieces of branches, and, you know, a couple good-sized chunks of bark that have fallen off the fir trees around it, and there's a little bit of junk and debris that people have obviously either dragged up there over the years or salvaged off the vehicle itself, and, you know, in the joy of throwing it through the windows and such, got some of it up on the roof, and, you know, just people being people. You know, they know nobody can see them, so they'll do just about anything. You know, which is, let's face it, half the fun of driving. Just looking out the window and seeing people doing stupid stuff in their car because they think they're alone. You're not alone. You're in a fishbowl on a public road, you idiot. Anyway, I digress. I tend to do that, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed, but I do digress on certain things at certain times for one reason or another. I guess it's just the way the mind works. So, I'm looking at these objects and thinking, well, this ain't bad. Pick up a piece of what probably at one time was a 2x4. Now, although you guys actually know what a 2x4 is, truth be told, you don't. A 2x4 is a piece of wood that measures 2 inches along the narrow side and 4 inches across the fat side. Seems obvious, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you go to the store and buy yourself a 2x4 and measure it, and then you tell me you actually know what a 2x4 is. Ain't gonna happen. Well, anyway, I take this chunk of 2x4, and I think, well, I don't think it's gonna do any serious sort of harm. In fact, may not really hurt them at all, but it might freak them out. And so with the happen of freaking him out in mind, I'm thinking, I'll yell at the same time I throw it. So I get up on my feet, and the bear was down on all fours and glaring at me at that point and kind of moving his shoulders back and forth. And, you know, basically looking at, I don't know, maybe thinking, can he really jump that high and get up there? Well, I clutch this piece of 2x4 and I look at that bear and I yell at the top of my lungs, just, "Blah!" and I let fly. And this thing hits him square in the shoulder. Well, I'm going to quickly stop here and show you an object that is approximately the same density as a bear's shoulder. There you are, that's done. So yeah, and in retrospect, which means look behind you, dummy. In retrospect, I'd have to say that my yelling when I threw it simply made the bear a little more aware that, yep, that was you that did that, wasn't it, you doughhead white boy. So now the bear's really disturbed because he thinks you're not only holding out on the tuna, you're being aggressive about it. So now he's doing the I'm a bear bull. And the bear bull is where they put their head down and they make the same chuff noise, but instead of stomping their feet to get the point across, they show you what their claws can do. They rake them on the ground and dig whatever size trench is appropriate for the leftover mangled little bitties of your body when they're done with you. So he does this a couple times, and I'm going, well, that went from aggressive behavior to pretty much psychotic behavior in a single toss of a 2x4. Now this isn't very good. So, I'm thinking, well, think about all the stuff you learned in survival school. Nope, that didn't work. Alright, so what are you going to do next? Well, I'm thinking next, and at this point, almost unconsciously, I reach back into my pack sack, and I pull out the second tuna fish sandwich. Yeah, I know, it's like, you know, I can see why common sense finally died. It was already starting to fade back in my day. But yeah, I pull out my second tuna fish sandwich. In the midst of this bear's great display of angst, I proceed to eat that as well. Well, then the bear does something I've never heard a bear do before. It mules. Now, muling is generally the kind of behavior you don't expect from something that size. It's kind of a, well, I think y'all know what the sound is, but yeah. And it occurs to me at that point, he's not only upset, he's frustrated. He's really, really frustrated. He's kind of in the position I'm in. You know, where I'm going, buddy, you're pretty much screwed. And you can't think of what to do. This is getting really frustrating. He's in the same position, except he's in, buddy, he's pretty much screwed, but you're not sure what to do. This is getting frustrating. Well, there wasn't really a lot I could do other than perhaps repeat my mistake of throwing a chunk of whatnot at this fella. Whereas his frustration did, I suppose good for him, have an outlet. That, of course, being, yeah, my Honda Elsinore. Yeah, and it is a relatively light bike. I mean, nothing like today's motorcycles. I don't think there was actually any plastic on it at all. But yeah, he hooks one of his fine-looking front paws under this thing, just right by the gas tank, and flips it. Now, I almost thought it was going to land on the wheels again. He tossed it that high. Unfortunately, it did not. It landed partially on a front wheel, did a little bit of a pogey stick, and flopped over on its side. Yeah. Now I'm thinking, buddy, you just went from a little bit hooped to absolutely screwed. Because as I look down at my bike, I can see it is leaking vital fluids from every orifice. And I tell you, not a pretty sight. Not a pretty sight at all. Well, that's all our sawdust. You know what, folks? That's also about all the time I got today. So next time around, I will continue the adventure of the bear. I hope you've enjoyed the story up to this part. Now, I know you're all going, well, look, buddy, I don't have to tune in, because the point of it is you're sitting here talking to us, so we know you got out alive. Well, that's about the only thing you do know at this point. Because as far as you know, I only got one arm, because the bear ate the other one. No, he didn't. I'm kidding. It ain't that bad. But I will let you know next time around what went on with the bear. And, well, this is the interwebs, so at this point I'm supposed to say to you, what the heck is it? Something about writing stuff in the white part down below all the other parts. And there's a thing there that, I don't know, looks like a cartoon thumb or something sticking up. You're supposed to push on that as well. So, there you are. Next time around. Well, it's next time around. Bye.